This video will focus on the North Carolina Kindergarten CC Point 5 standard. The major focus of this standard is to count to answer how many. Students will work on counting to answer how many in the following situations. Given a number from 1 to 20, count out that many objects. Given up to 20 objects, name the next successive number when an object is added, recognizing the quantity is one more or one greater. Given 20 objects arranged in a line, a rectangular array, and a circle, identify how many. And given 10 objects in a scattered arrangement, identify how many. Students will be counting up to 10 objects in a scattered arrangement. Students will be counting objects that are arranged in a line, rectangular array, and a circle, up to 20 objects. Students develop the understanding that a group of objects counted multiple times will remain the same. Objects placed in a line or a rectangular array are easier to count. However, they may limit students' abilities to develop tracking strategies. Tracking strategies are ways to keep track of counted objects in order to determine how many. Students may move each object as it is counted, point to each object as it is counted, look without touching when counting, or use a combination of these strategies. Here is an example of how a student may move each object as it is counted. Here is an example of how a student may point to each object as it is counted. Here is an example of how a student may look without touching when counting. Providing multiple arrangements will help students learn how to keep track and develop their tracking strategies when counting. Since scattered arrangements are the most challenging, students only count up to 10 objects in this standard. Students will not begin the school year with counting up to 10 objects in a scattered arrangement and/or up to 20 objects in a non-scattered arrangement. The learning experiences that students are provided throughout the math units are scaffolded to work towards these counting goals. As students progress through the math units, the number of objects they will need to count and produce will increase. Students will also need to name the next successive number when an object is given. For example, if a student counts 12 objects in this rectangular array and is given one additional object, the student will need to identify there are now 13 objects without recounting all the objects. The goal of this portion of the standard is recognizing the quantity is one more or one greater. Naming the next successive number when an object is added to a set is based on the idea of inclusion. Inclusion is the understanding that numbers build by exactly one each time, and that they nest within each other by this amount. For example, a set of 3 objects is nested within a set of 4 objects. There is also a set of 2 objects and a set of 1 object within the 4 objects. So if a student has 5 objects and wants to have 6 objects, the student is able to add 1 more, knowing that 5 is within 6, rather than removing all the objects and starting over to make a new set of 6. This concept is critical for the later development of part-whole number relationships. As a producer, when given a number between 1 and 20, a student will count out the given number of objects. For example, when given the number 9, the student counts out 9 apples. Just as with the counting situations, students will work towards counting out up to 20 objects as the school year progresses. Students will begin the school year with counting out objects for a number given between 1 and 10, and through the year will move up to counting out objects for a number between 1 and 20.